What's up, guys? Jake from CTAC Coach. Hey, I'm excited. The garage gym is pretty much set up, getting ready to go, getting ready to start teaching you guys these exercises. But before I can teach you the exercises, I have to be able to teach you how we're going to structure the workout. So that way you know, okay, well, I need to take this push exercise, I need to take this pull exercise, so on and so forth. Doesn't do me no good to teach you pushing exercises, pulling exercises, squatting exercises, hinging exercises, to teach you these things if I haven't first told you how we're going to structure these workouts. So this video is going to be a short video on the two structures that we're going to be using when it comes to when I start showing you these exercises. You're going to understand how to take the exercises and apply them to the workout, because you're going to already have the structure of the workout ready to go. So for our basic structure, this is for people who are new to fitness or have been out of fitness for a while, or they're for whatever reason they're not in super great shape right now, but you will be, okay? But we all have to start off somewhere in the basic realm, right? Doesn't matter how good of an athlete you are, you had to start off at some point in your life in the basic world. So rather than structuring our workouts around muscle groups, right? So these are the what we call bro splits that you hear people say, oh, it's chest day, it's leg day, it's back day, it's arms day. That is muscle-based structure. It's isolation-based structure, right? So I'm choosing a muscle group and I'm isolating it on that day. That's fine if that structure lines up with what your goals are. But our goals right now, in the very beginning of these videos, is fat loss, foundational strength, and getting your bodies ready to where when you eventually decide, hey, I want to change my goals up a little bit and I want to do this. Okay, now we can do, because you have a good foundation, we can actually start doing workouts that are more centered toward those specific goals, right? So we got to start off foundationally first. So we're going to base our structures off of foundational human movement, right? The body was designed to work as one unit, not designed to work independently of itself. So we're going to train our whole body centered around movements that we use on a day-to-day basis. Okay, so over here on the basic side, you'll see we have a push. So a push is anything where I take my hands from close to my body and I move them away from my body. Okay, so if you think about push-ups, right? At the bottom of a push-up, my hands are close to my center. They're close to my mass. And then I'm going to push my hands away from my body, which is going to separate them from the mass of my body. That's a push. So it can go horizontally away from me, or it can go vertically away from me, but that's a push. Pull is the opposite. When we do a pull, we're talking about bringing our hands from out here and bringing it closer to us, right? So it can be from vertical coming down, it can be from out coming into us, but we're pulling something to us. Rotation, anti-rotation. This one has to do with our core. So one thing you see a lot of people do with their core is they do a lot of crunches, they do a lot of sit-ups, and while flexion and extension of the spine is part of the core's job, it's not its main job. Its main job is spinal stabilization. So your core's primary job is to stabilize that spinal cord so that when you're doing these athletic movements, your spine is protected, okay? Now, one of the principles on functional fitness is, does the exercise translate into what I do in my everyday life? Rotation and anti-rotation is something you guys do all day long, right? So if you have kids, maybe I turn here and I pick my kid up out of the stroller, and I turn over here and I put my kid in their car seat now. Well, that's rotation and anti-rotation. I pick my kid up, my core is going to initiate that rotation, and then it has to slow that rotation down so that way I don't just twist my spinal cord, right? So that's your core's primary job. So we're going to be training rotation and anti-rotation. Then we're going to get into our squat. So what a squat is from a foundational movement description, if you will, is it's maximal knee flexion with minimal hip flexion. So what I think about, or how I teach it to people, is if your hands are hanging down just in front of you, and I want to touch the ground, but using a squatting foundational movement, I'm going to keep my back and my hips locked in place, and I'm going to bend at the knee to lower my hands towards the ground, right? So it's maximal knee flexion. I'm flexing my knee, I'm bending at the knee to bring my hands closer to the earth. But my hips and my back are going to stay pretty much in the same position that they were in. There's not going to be a whole lot of flexion in my hips. Excuse me. The hinge is the opposite of the squat. With a hinge, if my hands are hanging in front of me and I want to touch the earth, when I hinge, I'm going to have maximal hip flexion with minimal knee flexion. So I'm not going to bend very much in my knee. I'm going to have a slight bend there, but not very much. And I'm going to flex at the hips like the hinge of a door. So think of your hips like a hinge, and they're just moving like this. So my lower body's staying stationary, and my upper body is just pivoting over the hinge that is my hips, okay? So that's the difference between a squat and a hinge. Again, squat, maximal knee flexion, minimal hip flexion. The hinge, maximal hip flexion, minimal knee flexion, okay? So that's our basic structure, guys. So when I start teaching you guys these exercises, and I start teaching you, this is a push exercise, this is a pull exercise, this is a rotation, anti-rotation exercise, this is a squat, this is a hinge. You're gonna have these exercises in kind of like an exercise bank, where you have your list of all your pushing, your list of all your pulling, your list of all your squats, so on and so forth. And all you're going to do to create these basic workouts is take one exercise per foundational human movement from your list of exercises, and you're going to put it into this structure. And we're going to make, when we start talking about the workouts themselves, I'm going to show you some different ways that you can play with it, whether you're doing sets and reps, or whether you're doing more of a circuit style system. It all works together. You have your bank of exercises, and you plug them in accordingly. So again, basic, one exercise per foundational human movement, okay? When we start talking about our intermediate people, these are people who, maybe it's not really challenging them enough. They need to be challenged a little bit more, okay? All we're doing, guys, you'll notice, push, right? It's not a whole lot different than our basic one. We have our push. We have our pull. We have our rotation, anti-rotation. We have our squat. And we have our hinge. The only difference from the intermediate and the basic is now we're essentially going to be doing 2 exercises per movement, but we're going to divide the movements up, okay? So with our push, right, we're still just doing a push, but we're going to divide it into one vertical push and one horizontal push. So our vertical push could be our shoulder presses. So we're going to be working more of our shoulder. And our horizontal push is going to be more of our push-ups and our bench press, focusing more so on the chest muscles. So that's all we're doing. We're still same structure. We're just making it a little bit more in-depth now. We're breaking it down into vertical and horizontal. Same thing with our pull. We're going to break it into a vertical pull and a horizontal pull. So a vertical pull, lat pull downs, pull-ups, things like that. Horizontal pull are our rows, right? We're here and we're bringing it in closer to our body. We have our rotation and anti-rotation. Another thing that you can add here, if you would rather do, instead of 2 anti-rotation, rotational exercises, this is where you can do a static hold or a bracing type exercise. So you could have rotation, anti-rotation, and then you can have a form of a plank, okay? Because both of those are going to be working the muscles that stabilize the spinal cord. Then you get down here into our lower body exercises, our squat and our hinge, okay? Instead, obviously, we're not gonna divide it up into a vertical squat and a horizontal squat. So what we're doing down here is we're breaking it up into bilateral and unilateral, okay? So a bilateral squat is going to be what everybody thinks of when they think of as a squat, right? I got both feet lined up evenly. I got my weight, whether I'm doing a goblet squat, back squat, whatever, body weight squat, but I'm squatting using both legs with the same amount of intensity on each leg. I'm keeping it balanced, right? Unilateral is going to be the opposite. That's where one of my legs is going to be focused on a squat. So that can be your lunges. When you get more advanced, that's your single leg pistol squats, things like that. Then we do the same thing with our hinge. We have a bilateral hinge and a unilateral hinge. Think of a bilateral hinge as like a standard deadlift, and we'll get into those. And a unilateral hinge would be a single leg deadlift that we do with a kettlebell or a steel mace or something like that. So that's the intermediate setup. It's the exact same setup as our basic. It's still push, pull, rotation, anti-rotation, squat, and hinge. We're just breaking it down a little bit more in depth into vertical and horizontal push, vertical and horizontal pull, rotation, anti-rotation. You can add a plank, which is just static hold stabilization. Then we have bilateral and unilateral squat. Bilateral meaning both legs, unilateral meaning one. Same thing with a hinge, bilateral hinge, unilateral hinge. And that's really it, guys. Structuring a basic foundational workout is not difficult. And we're gonna make it super easy for you because the videos that are gonna be following this one are gonna be the exercises that fall into this category. So we're gonna start off with the easiest and least expensive style of exercises to put in here. So we're going to start off with body weight and resistance bands. The reason for that is I want to give you guys an opportunity to kind of start building up your little home gym. So resistance bands are easily accessible. You can take them with you anywhere, and they're relatively inexpensive. So, and your body weight, of course, is free. So I'll teach you body weight and resistance band exercises to each one of these categories. And then once I teach those to you, I'll create like a word bank of exercises for you that'll have all your pushing, all your pulling, your rotation, anti-rotation, your squat, and your hinge. And then you can literally, each time you exercise, just say, okay, I need a push exercise, and you can find that and you can plug that in. I need a pull, plug that in, so on and so forth, and you've got your workout structured, okay? So I'll also be making you guys some example workouts as well. And like I said, we'll break it down into if we're doing a sets and reps workout that day, or if we're doing more of a circuit style that day. Doesn't matter at all, falls in the same, okay? So again, guys, basic, intermediate. I'm gonna back up real quick. So this gives you you screenshot this, pause your little YouTube player and screenshot this, write it down however you want to do it, come back and reference the video, however works for you, just so you have this, so that way when I start making these videos for these exercises, you actually understand what it is I'm talking about when I say, hey, here's your vertical push, hey, here's your horizontal push, here's your unilateral squat. You're going to understand, if you've watched this video, exactly what I'm talking about. So again, guys, I'm excited. I'm going to be bringing you guys those exercises, and I needed to get this video out to you guys so that you guys would understand it. So again, if you know anybody that could benefit from this channel, anybody that maybe you want to work out with, send them over this way, have them subscribe, so that that way you have somebody that's helping. You can help keep each other accountable. You can help keep each other motivated, and so on and so forth.